Hi, welcome back to Off Picture Discussions. I'm Giovanna Andolina Capone, and today I had the pleasure of speaking with Rachel Cocca, costume designer extraordinaire that I've had the pleasure of working with on a number of projects. We had a great discussion, and I hope you enjoy. So let's jump right in. I want to talk about how we met. Well, before we start, should we acknowledge, in case anyone sees a hand, that I have a little co-pilot here in my seat, so...
We have a special guest.
We have a special guest with very tiny hands that's 2 months old, so, you know, if there's an appendage that sticks up, that's what it is.
Sweet Luca.
Yes, all of our little mascot for all of us. So let's talk about how we met, because I thought it was very funny, but I know my side of the perception, but I want you to talk on the first time that we...
Well, I think it was like I had never designed a film before, and I saw a Facebook post it was like for a random, I don't even know how I ended up on this page, but you guys were looking for a costume designer for Neon Bleed. Mm-hmm. And I randomly emailed, and I think it was like a quick back and forth, and I think within that same week, we set up an interview.
Yeah, because Jenny, our producer, Jenny Shearer,
she's the one who posted.
Yeah, for Neon Bleed, I don't know, I think it was a Chapman
Which I
University.
Didn't go to Chapman. I know no one at Chapman. I have no idea how I ended up on that.
And I don't know how she was, maybe she went there actually.
Or knew somebody.
I have to double check with her there, but yeah, I think she knew someone or somehow was in, she's connected like that. Yeah, she knows these things. So, but yeah, she posted and I remember her too reaching out saying, oh, Rachel sounds awesome, and she's from Buffalo, believe it or not. I'm like, really? So I was intrigued.
Crazy.
Yeah.
I feel like within the first few minutes we just clicked and started talking about everything but filmmaking.
I know, that was funny. That was really funny too, because everyone was supposed to be there, so it was supposed to be me, John, two producers, and then you, and no one could make it except for me. Yeah. And then we were just talking about, just couple old Buffalo gals.
Also, you have no idea. I was so nervous. It was my first interview.
Just because it was, I know,
a costume designer. I'd only been on set a few times, but I knew it was what I wanted to do. Yeah. And you guys had told me it was going to be all of you, all the producers, whatever. And
yeah.
Before you're actually in the room with these people, you think they're
you build up the whole thing in your head. Yeah.
Like a Hollywood producer.
Well, and you picture it so funny, right? When you have a creative mind, then you fill these things into, so you're
I'm making the movie in my head.
Yeah. You're picturing a panel of judges in front of you, and you coming in
Totally. Yeah. I definitely was sweating out the wazoo, freaking out, what do I say? How do I sell myself? I want to be honest, but and then I think within the first few moments of talking to you, I was like, oh, yeah, we're gonna be friends.
Well, and now that it's so funny, because now we are, now it's been over 2 years.
Yeah.
And maybe 2.5 since the beginning of that process. Yeah. Maybe, right?
You guys hired me, but even before, because how long ago did you guys...
Because we shot in June, so now it's been over 21.
Yeah.
So we must have talked in April, something like that. Yeah. But the funny thing is you're expecting this, and then it's me on the couch. Yeah. Which is hysterical, COVID times, right? So it was all on Zoom, and it was me on the couch. And then, I felt like I knew you instantly. So I remember having to record it for them, and then emailing, be well, I'm obviously biased, but this is who I
think even before the end of the interview, you were well, I really like you, but I guess I have to see what the other people
I think I did say that.
And I was okay, great. I didn't really know. I'm she probably says that to everyone.
No, not at all. But and it's funny because you keep having to remind me that was technically your first. Yeah. That was just absolutely your first gig, because it just never felt like that way. Yeah. I still think you're kind of lying, because I'm there's no way.
I had done some short films, and I did a short series. A mini episode series that I had designed. Right. So I had experience with the logistics and having those conversations and stuff, but I didn't I had never interviewed, a feature felt such a undertaking. Yeah. And
but just your whole process, I was I was bragging about it to other people I know. I'm look at the extensive work.
I love a process.
Can you talk on that? How, if you want to, how your brain works, and I mean, just your organization is.
Yeah.
is ridiculous.
I think also that's how John and I connected too, because I don't remember if you guys sent me, if I saw the script before the interview or after, but I remember.
Yeah, I don't remember either.
Maybe I saw like a lookbook or something.
Yeah, I think maybe you had a general sense of.
Yeah, I don't think
characters.
you guys sent me the script until maybe after I had gotten the job. I don't remember.
Yeah.
But I remember that my first meeting with John after getting the job, and we just chatted. I think it was like well over an hour of us just talking about the script and the characters, because that's like my favorite part.
Yeah.
Is like the people and their stories and like what all goes into what they wear and like their appearance, and also like so much of the character is and what people are wearing or how you're presenting yourself is like, okay, thinking into the psychology of like, what do you want other people to think about you?
Yeah.
How do you want to look to other people in the world, and sort of like going backwards through that for other people, or like and even like little things like their socioeconomic background, and like then personal style, obviously, or like practicality, like what do they normally do they like wearing like extra layers and stuff like that, but it all originates back to like the script and the character development, which is all in the script,
which is cool because it's like you're no less of a writer than the writer of the thing, right? It's like you have to think the same way, so you're thinking of like what fabric, like this person wouldn't wear this fabric, they wouldn't have the money to, or they have to, they would because they're trying to put something on to prove themselves to other people, or
this person's like a little bit like sensitive or like ADD, like they want to wear like comfortable clothes that don't scratch them, like they like to wear organic materials, or like it's like weird little things like that I like thinking about. And that the cool thing with John too, being the first director writer I worked with, is that he was also the writer, so he was really like fun to talk to about the characters, because I feel like we got to kind of develop them together too, even more so. I mean, he had this amazing base, and then it just
and that was funny too, because you said you're like, I think he likes what I did. He just keeps going like, yeah, sounds good. And I was like, no, it's only because he trusts you, because when something's wrong, he has a lot to say. Yeah. So if he's like, no, whatever, I trust you, then it's, John always believes in like hiring the right person so that he doesn't have to micromanage them or think about them.
That was such a fantastic opportunity for me, being my first feature. Like, I feel like you guys really just like gave it to me and let me run with it. Yeah. And doing that, like, so I mean, the first meeting, like talking about the script and talking about the characters, and then I feel like my process is all very then like mathematical of like changes and like doing tweaks. Like a breakdown.
I do remember that I like had been pinning a bunch of stuff on Pinterest, and I sent you just a little like, here's what we picture, here's what I picture. John confirmed like these are who these people are. Yeah. But like, don't get married to this, take it and run with it. And then and then I never talked to you again forever, and you and
I
John
didn't see you again until the fitting.
I
feel
like
the
fittings.
And you guys were so, I mean, you didn't even really ask for like updates. So
no, but I think I don't think that that's other people's experience. Like I think that's only your experience, because it just gelled from day one with you. And I don't think everyone clicks like that. But I do remember feeling like, okay, when you have people that you work easily with like that, you're just kind of fitting things into place like that. And it was one thing that it was just like, okay, perfect, that fits, and we don't have to worry about that ever again.
And that's my favorite thing about like what we do, is the collaboration, like working with other people who like,
hi,
he's making his guest appearance. Hi. It's like the collaboration and working with other people that are like excited to talk about these things and dive in and like really like develop the story and the people and tell this person's story like all together. Yeah. That's my favorite part. So, and it was like so nice to be able to, and just on that set in particular, I feel like everyone was really excited to be there, and we were all just like young and ambitious and like just like
there
ready.
Was good energy and it was an excitable, like it did kind of feel like the little engine that could kind of a thing. It's like we kind of had nothing to lose is what it was. Like we had nothing to lose, and everyone was so talented, but like needed that, like not needed that opportunity, but like was kind of ready to have that opportunity.
And we all jumped in and really did trust each other. Yeah. Like I feel like having that first conversation with John, I feel like that's, and I mean, I don't know what he thinks, but I feel like that's how I gained his trust, was us nerding out, like full nerding out over the script and over the characters. And just talking it out fully. And then for me, everything's visual. So I think I always do mood boards for every character. And I think I sent that, and he was like, yeah, this is great. I think maybe there was like one or two things that he's like, nah, not that. And I'm like, okay, got it.
But how nice is that? So you know he's not just like fluffing because like he gave you when something wasn't right.
Absolutely. And then I think something that I really liked about that experience too is he was there for the fittings. Yeah. And being like a new designer, that was really nice, because he's like a really relaxed presence, but when he has an opinion, he says it. But it's not in like, I feel like he really knows how to like work with other artists and like share his opinion but in like a question way. Like it's not like he wants to take over. He's like, why would you choose that?
Right, because then if like I think that if the answer makes perfect sense, he'd be like, oh, I just didn't even think about it like that. But it's a conversation. Yeah, which is how it should be. I feel like on a lot of because sometimes like something is so hidden in a message or so obvious that you don't see it. Right. Regardless, like either way, it could go either way. And then it's like, oh my gosh, my brain didn't even go. Someone said, and I won't even remember now what it was, but someone made they made an assumption about neon bleed, like something in the film, and it was so obvious, I just never even saw it. I'm like, oh god, funny. It could have been that.
Because you're so close. You're so close to the project.
I'm so close, and like there's 7 other things it could have been, and they presented yet an 8th. Yeah. And I think that's what I really like about John's writing and directing, is that he leaves room for there to be a couple different opinions, and not there's no like one way, like there's the way he is thinking of it, but then when I hear someone else say something to him like, oh, I thought this and this and this, he goes, oh yeah, it could have been that, because it could have been.
And that's what makes a good movie though, is because you bring your own personal experiences to it. And we all do that whenever we watch a movie, right? And when we're making a movie too. That's why like the collaboration, because you have all these like amazing minds and amazing people who have experienced such different things.
Yeah, and I think that scares people, like if they're like, well, which way is it? And it's, people don't like no answer. It's like, no, it could have been any. And they're like, no, but tell me which one it is for you, you know, and whatever. Yeah. It's perception. But I was laughing before because when you're talking about the fittings, all I could think about is how all the boys wanted to hang at your place and never leave.
I mean, I will say, like, I think the more that I'm like in the industry and working on some of these like bigger shows and stuff, I think the people that make it are the people that you can be around for 12-hour days. To be completely honest, that is like so important, is to come at it with like a positive attitude and to remember that we're all grateful to be there. We all like are so lucky to be making films for a living. Like what? Like getting to tell stories, that's so cool. And like pretty much everyone I think in that industry, it's like a dream. It's like that's what you've wanted to do, or like I don't know. It's like
and not only that, but like and then you appreciate like what you've made, but then you also, like we were talking about how when you're watching something back, like you're having your whole experience when you've made when you've been behind the scenes is like you remember hilarious stories like of the whole that day we had to go yell at this guy because the trees were they were trimming trees in the neighborhood, and we had to go ask him like, hey, can you like pipe down for 10 minutes? And he's like, up in the tree, you know?
Yeah, that was crazy. Cutting down a massive palm tree. You and me went on a covert mission. This was the second feature we did together. To go beg him to stop cutting down the tree so we could finish this.
Yeah, and he's like bungeed up in this very tall palm tree.
Please,
and you're like, excuse me, sorry to bother you. As he's like 20 stories up.
You and me, kooky, like, little baby Italians.
I know.
Like,
hopping in the car.
Come over for lunch after.
Yeah, seriously. We're like, sorry, but there's free food in it for
Great
you.
Catering.
Yeah. So he's like, yeah, no, I can pipe down for 20 minutes. I'll just hang out.
Yeah.
We're like, look
he's
up there.
Hanging off a tree.
Hanging off a tree. But that's like, there's always like crazy stories, but it would be so boring if there weren't crazy stories. I did want to talk about that film, though, because one of the things that you did with that wardrobe... and that costume design was, you were talking about color. Yeah. So you're like, oh, the protagonist in the beginning, like, before she kind of finds herself, she doesn't wear any color. She's very neutral. She's very colorless. And then as the story goes on, and I just was like, wow, that makes so much sense, but I wouldn't have thought about that, you know?
And for that character in particular, too, I feel like throughout the story, just more color comes into her life. Like, she starts gardening, she starts being around younger people, which just, like, naturally more vibrant.
More alive, more life, so, like, how your brain thinks of, like, these characters and, like, what would they wear? I mean, I obviously don't, as we joke all the time, I'm not someone that speaks through my clothing. I once had someone tell me, like, if I did have that, you know, a label on my wardrobe, it would be like Johnny Cash, because I only wear black. It's like all I feel comfortable in for the most part.
Johnny Cash.
Like neutrals. But yeah, it's just not something, like, I've never understood how to, like, do that with clothing. It's not my medium, but I do love acting and playing the characters, because when I put on a wardrobe someone else has thought through, I'm like, oh my god, this adds to, like, Romina in Neon Bleed. I felt so exactly that character, and I was like, this is nail on the head.
That was such a fun character, because it really was a character for you. You're like, you had the accent, you had the costume, like, and it was, I mean, there were little parts of you in that costume, I think, but it was so Romina, you know?
But I felt more comfortable playing that role, wearing those clothes. I'm like, now this makes sense. You know what I mean? More than, like, my everyday life. Because it's like someone that has that brain thought it out.
I love that. My favorite part of the entire process is the fitting and working really closely with the actors, because again, it's like the collaboration. Like, you have that really nice, like, intimate moment before you get into the fittings or anything, when you're sharing your ideas with the director, and that's really special. But then once you actually get to start putting the clothes on the actors, and they start getting into it, and they start feeling the character, and they're like, oh yeah, this could work. And you know, there's always like tough, any movie I've ever worked on, there's like tough cookies that are always skeptical, and I'm like, just go put the pants on. And they put the pants on, and they're like, oh, you know, actually. Or like the cowboy boots, or, you know, like, it's like stuff like that, that, like, I'm like, just, okay, come on,
It's funny that you chose to say that, because that was what was in my mind right before you said that. I was like, yeah, there's always, but then it, like I said, it kind of makes you as the actor feel, you're like, actually, this is exactly what I would wear as this character.
And I like opening it up to them, too, and being like, you know, be honest. If this doesn't feel like the character, tell me, because I want you to feel like, number one, your best. I don't want you to be thinking, like, feeling uncomfortable or feeling self-conscious on screen, first and foremost, but then also, I want it to be the character, and I want it to be your, like, both of our idea of the character. Like, and that's that collaboration.
What I thought, too, is, like, your way of representing the characters was so much more subtle, and because it was more subtle, it was more spot on than if you went, because there's a level of, like, if you do something that's, like, super cliche and cheesy, like, that's what's so hard between a good costume designer and in my opinion, one that's not as good, is just one that's, like, okay, that's, like, so obvious that it's almost painful. There was something so subtle about the wardrobe you did that it was almost more specific. You know what I mean? It didn't try too hard, though.
Oh, that's so nice to hear. Thank you for that. Because I worry about it, especially because that was, like, my first film. So I'm kind of just like, this... I mean, this is funny for me to tell you this. But I'm like, this feels right.
But I mean, okay, you have very strong intuition. We always talk about this.
Right, and obviously, like we just talked about, like, everything for me starts from the script and from talking with the writer, talking with the director. Like, really, that's, like, the root of it. And then from there, you kind of just...
you go. But let's back up now and talk about how this all started. So, like, let's go into your, you know, how you knew you wanted to do this, and then your training and, like, your
Well, I was always, like, a little fashionista. You know, I was, like, I remember we had these, like, wooden blocks, or maybe they were, like cardboard blocks, and I would tie them to the bottom of my feet so that I could wear, like, heels. Like, off. It sounds, like, so painful.
No, that's so funny.
But, like, always doing weird stuff like that, and I had my Barbies. I was always, like, you know, designing clothes for them, sort of, or, like, styling them out, like, that kind of stuff. And... yeah, one of the story, I've told you this story before, but, like, back in, when I was in kindergarten, I think, it was, like, one of those career days, you dress up, like, what you want to be when you're older, and the thing that came to mind for me was I wanted to be a fashion designer. And I remember my mom kind of, like, not being so excited about that choice. and she was like, of all the things, like, women have worked so hard to, like, get to this point where we can be lawyers and doctors, and she, you know, like, she, bless her feminist heart.
Yeah.
But she totally, like, poo-pooed it, and I still went and was, like, a fashion designer.
Yeah.
But that, like, stayed with me. So I think I originally went to school for political science and theater, but theater was always just kind of like the hobby, right?
Yeah.
Political science, I was pre-law.
Is your expression.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was pre-law for a long time, which I still, to this day, I think that every American should get a political science bachelor's degree, just because it, like, you figure out how the government works.
Yeah.
Which... like, average people don't know how.
No, we're not really taught any of that. No, and I was actually talking to John about this recently. It's like, even like U.S. history or whatever, I don't really remember, or like, I don't know if it was because I was so young or immature at the time, or just like not focused, but I have to go look up things that I shouldn't have to look up.
Same.
And also, like, you should know how your processes work. Like, you should know how the systems work.
Yeah.
Just even for a basic understanding, but also, like, why are we so uneducated on that?
We're so uneducated on it, yeah. So,
and you can't know your power if you're not educated on things, or
like how the government affects you, even like day to day. Because I think people have like weird misconceptions of that.
For sure,
too.
your powers or protections. Like, you don't know what they're doing for you, if anything, and you don't know what you know.
And having that historical knowledge too.
Knowledge is power. You know,
so I'm grateful to have had that. But I did double major in theater, and that's kind of through doing theater I started falling in love with costume design and the costumes, and I did my first like few productions were obviously just like theatrical productions, and that's like I took my first like sewing and like basics to costume design, costume like structure and stuff.
So you hadn't done any before that? Like sewing, actually?
I knew how to hand sew because I had done ballet.
Oh,
and I would hand sew my ribbons
your point shoes.
My point shoes.
I did too, but it looked like
garbage. Same.
I mean, while you were wearing your cardboard heels and doing your Barbies, I would chuck Barbies in the corner, and I had Batman slippers, so like that's where I was.
And you know what? That tracks. It really tracks.
And thank God I had a boy. You know what I mean? Because trains
fully makes sense.
Although, you know, not to limit him, he can be into whatever he wants to be in, but I was not into.
He might be taping blocks on the bottom of his shoes.
I know he might like the Barbies, and I liked the. I had my own set of trains. You know what I mean?
Amazing. That's how it should be, though. It should be fluid.
Yeah, I was not about the Barbie life. LOL now, because Barbie's a movie, but maybe I'd be more into it now.
Yeah.
You know.
Movie.
No, I think it's funny though, because that program that you did it was at UB, right?
Yeah.
I think I told you this, but my aunt, she was in that program way back when.
The theater program?
Yeah. But as a costume designer, because she ended up being a wedding dress designer and maker.
Oh my God, yeah.
And she was in that program, but there were so few people that they actually closed it down.
Yeah.
And so she stopped doing it. But then by the time you come along, they opened it back. Like, it's weird, but it's the same program.
Yeah, and I will say, like, for me, I feel like I'm very influenced by, like, the people I'm around. Mm-hmm. And I was really drawn to the one professor, Donna Massimo, Buffalo native. She lives right around the corner from the Lexington Co-op.
Love that. Place is yummy.
She was so sweet, though, too. Like, I remember she invited me over to her house, like, to, like, talk about stuff and, like, show me books. Like, just, like, one of those really, like, amazing mentors.
Yeah.
So I, like, started kind of working in, they had like a costume workshop, and that's where her office was, and like a few other like professors and stuff, and I just wanted to be there all the time, like, and in my free time when I was in between classes, I would go and like hang out and like see what they were working on and help with anything. And I remember like it's always like the tiniest things, like I would go there for my free period. For some reason, I think I needed a credit or something, so I would go and help. And that was like my first things I would help in that workshop. And they just had me, like, a lot of the times, they would just have me sewing on labels.
Oh, yeah.
Name labels. Just sewing on name labels. And that was like my first kind of thing. But I would just sit there and like watch them making their costumes. And they were making costumes for the dancers. Because that's a huge program at UB, the dance program.
Oh, it's
so
big.
we would do all the dance shows in addition to all the theater and musicals there. So it was like a pretty big... like we were producing a lot out of that.
I was just thinking like how funny it would have been like if I had stayed at UB and gone to. I mean, I'm 6 years older, as Dom would say, than you. I'm just so much
recording this.
Oh no,
putting it out
we'll
there.
have to bleep that out. I'll just say no. I'm so much older than you. No, we never would have crossed paths even then.
Yeah.
But UB has like some really great stuff.
Totally, and those
their
dancers go on to like do
they do
big things. Like there's a few that are out in LA now that I like know.
And a lot of them end up in companies. Like it's a good program.
Yeah, totally.
But yeah, that's funny. And I had a sewing class for like to make dance costumes, or I don't. It was an elective. I didn't have to take it, but it was when I was a dance major, Ohio State, and the Ohio State. I don't want to get backlash if anyone hears this. But I did not have the patience for that. Yeah. Like I'm like I couldn't have stitched a label on an item, and I would have done one and been like, can someone else do this, please? Yeah. Like I didn't. Yeah, I think I've like seen you randomly, like when you have to bead incessantly, like you have to, and you look peaceful.
I love
it looks like it's meditative for you. So.
Yeah, I love making things, and I mean, I feel like I pinched myself to be like, people are paying me to like make things and shop and style and make pants. Like I don't know, it feels crazy that I've been able to like.
And you work a lot. That's what so say some of the other you do film, but then do you want to talk about
Well, my favorite stuff is designing for sure, which I've been lucky enough to do with you a lot. And I've done 4 features now, and a few like short films and stuff like that. And then I've also been lucky enough to get into the union, 705 Costumers Union, and so I've been working on a lot of TV shows. And I'm lucky enough to have fallen into this weird reality TV world, especially during the writer's strike, because we've still been working. So I've been working on The Masked Singer, which is an insane costume department. I mean, it's like probably like 40 people just in the costume department. Yeah. And these are like these crazy, insane, intricate costumes that like the whole show is basically about the costume. And then Dancing with the Stars and Legendary.
Which is fun because you go from like being on, a certain indie film as small as like having a wardrobe department of 2, all the way to like 40 people, and it's like, but you like all the work you said, right?
I love all of it, and I don't want to be pigeonholed. Like I feel like a lot of people just commit themselves to one thing, and I feel so grateful that I like haven't had to do that yet.
But you like the variety of life.
I love the variety, and like, and also I've been lucky enough to do a lot of commercials too.
Yes.
So I've gotten into this commercial world that has been great, and that has like really served me well, and it's fun to see all these different things, and also it makes you appreciate like when you do get an opportunity to design for a film and work with these other artists, and it's not just like we're selling a product.
Well, it seems like you don't get burnt out then too, because if you were always doing the design, it would be like so taxing, and then if you're always doing the bedazzling, eventually you'd feel how I feel about it, which is that it's tedious now.
And like no day, like that's the other thing about like being in this industry is literally no day ever looks the same.
Right.
I'm never in the same office. If I am, it's for 2 or 3 months.
Yeah.
Maybe 6 months if you're on like a long show. But the ability for like every single day to look and feel different. You're working with different people every day, and you're making something different. You're working on a different story or a different character, or you're working with a reality TV star who's doing Dancing with the Stars. Like it's just like so fun and wild.
And you thrive on the variety versus some people that would be like, oh my god, it's like I can't ever get my footing. But for you, it's like the opposite is true.
I love it.
And you have that personality too. You get along with people really well. I feel like you make friends so easily. You know what I mean? Not to say like it's not like a lifelong best friend or something, but like people want you around. I feel like that's the minute back to that interview, right? I was like, she's a good vibe. Like
which again is so important. I feel like when I'm in the position to like create a team or like a little department, or I'm working on a commercial and I need assistance, like obviously I want somebody who's skilled, but at the end of the day, these are long days, and I want somebody who brings like a positive attitude and who's fun to be around, and who like is also excited to be there and grateful to be there, because I I feel that way, like, on
well, and you're the last, I mean, at least for, like, our films that we've done, it's like, you're the last person that, as an actor, I see before I have to go in front of the camera. And, like, you have to have a person that you feel really comfortable with, or that, like, peps you up. Like, I felt like you were, like, such a coach half the time. You're like, you got this, like, go. You know, when I had to wear that bathing suit, I had, you know, I was in this low-cut bathing suit, and, like, it's like, you're very vulnerable.
Costume design, too, is, like, part of it is therapy. Because within the first 5 minutes of a fitting, I could tell you exactly what each actor is, like, the most insecure about. And it's men, women, it's everyone. Because we all live in this, like, society that, you know, our bodies are such a big thing. Yeah, for sure. And you can't do your best work if you don't feel your best, right? Like they always say, like, look your best, do your best work. Right. But no, and it's funny because even in acting, like, our coach was like, yeah, you can always be, you know, talented, but really if you're fun and good to work with, like, you'll get hired more than the person that's just naturally talented. Totally. But it's nice when you have both, right? So it's not like you have to make, like, no one has to, like, make amends for the talent and be, well, she's really great, though, you know? It's like you have both, so. Thank you. Yeah. I appreciate that. You're a person that found what you were meant to do, I feel. And, like, you're doing it. You're perfect to do what you're doing. Thank you. But let's talk about our next project because, you know, let's add one more feature to your cap. So, how do you feel about going back to the homeland of Buffalo, New York to do? I'm so excited. And it's crazy that, I mean, we met in LA just literally through that interview, and I feel like we just clicked right away because we're both from Buffalo and we have a lot in common, and it feels very full circle now. I think so too. For us to all be kind of doing this, like, migration back to Buffalo, where now production is all of a sudden, like, happening there, which is so exciting for that It's city. Exciting, but what a laugh that, like, we left because it was not really anything creative there, and it's like, burp, But no, it's funny. But had we not left, it's like you wonder, like, would it have happened if I didn't leave? Not. No. And then John's from Rochester, so, like, just Western New York homies. I mean, I know it's just Josh Allen's world these days, and we're just living in it, but we'll carve out a little slice of something. Yeah, I'm excited, and it'll be nice to do kind of like a travel job that's not really a travel job because it's comfortable, and to be able to, like, spend time near our families and stuff too, and I don't know. But then like re-exploring some place that was familiar, but, like, that's it's been so reinvented now since we've left that it'll be. I loved reading the Baby Blue script because having come from Buffalo, which is where we're going to shoot it, you can just visualize everything, and thinking back to, like, the silos and the waterfront and just having that so apparent, which I think for me is definitely going to fuel, like, the design process. Yeah. Because... Well, and you know what people in Buffalo and that in the time that it takes place, you know, war. You know what I know those characters. I know. I do. They're clearer than anything I've ever seen. And I don't think it's because we grew up there. I just think they're also just very clear characters. Yeah. But you feel it. And, like, I know 10 people that are like this, or I know, like, I just know who these people are too. And the nature in this script in particular, like, I feel like there's a lot of, I can't think of the word, but just, like, there's a lot of nature involvement. Oh, and, like, and you mean, like, the actual setting, like, the beautiful, because it's a very pretty place to grow up. It's very lush. And people reconnecting with that as a way to, like, figure out themselves. Yeah. Too. At least that, like, kind of spoke to me, and I'm excited about, like, the fall East Coast colors that I just want to dive into, because that rich, like, Neon Bleed was so not. Neon Bleed is musicians, LA, like, scurry, like, more, like, kind of, like, high fashion or, like, streetwear. Right. And then for this to be so much more of, like, our roots and, like, more, like, homey and cozy, and, like, I'm already like natural and simplistic, and because and utilitarian too. Like, those people are Buffalo people are practical. They're practical. Well, and it's funny because I don't think I ever really got out of that. Like, no, absolutely. I don't think I ever could. And that's kind of, you tease me for this all the time, but it's like. And I'm sure other people feel this about where they grew up if they've left and seen something else, so they have a comparison. Yeah. It's like Buffalo people are hard workers. Mm-hmm. They're loyal. They're dedicated. They're tough. Yeah. You know, you kind of have to be if you're going to get up at 5 a.m. and scrape your windshield and not hate your life. It's a different breed. It's a different breed. You're tough. You're lifestyle. A tougher human being. Well, and I'm excited, like, for that, like, to get into, like, the costumes of like dyeing and distressing and stuff. Like think about like, you know, where would a Buffalonian's jacket be worn, or like what his pockets will be like, you know, worn, and like his elbows might be worn, or his sleeve, like, because also maybe he got his jacket at Goodwill, or like, you know, like that's such a common thing on the East Coast. Like there's
Burlington
a lot less
Coat
ego.
Factory.
There's so much less ego involved. I feel like it's like what's comfortable, what lasts. Like I'm gonna have this Carhartt that my dad had when he was a kid, and like, you know,
and it's kind of like what I love is like the brands that have been around forever. Like like you know how Stanley just became a thing. I had to explain to my mom that they're so in right now, and she's like, but these were around when I was a kid. I'm like, well, they just made it big now. Like
same with Carhartt. Now everybody's wearing it, but
as
it's
a fashion thing. But it was
workwear.
It used to be a function. Now it's like it's a statement of fashion.
Like think about the lined Carhartt. Like, did you ever have fleece lined jeans?
No. Fleece lined jeans. No, I used to just wear my hot chilies under my jeans. Long underwear.
And fleece lined Carhartt pants, fleece lined jeans, but like that screams to me like Buffalo, and like just that, like
I had fleece lined snow pants.
Amazing.
For my sledding days.
Yeah. But it's like that, like the textures of Buffalo, so different. So different than like other things that
the textures, and then also like layers, but like, okay, this is more makeup department, but when you're cold and you've just come in and your cheeks are bright red because they've warmed up, like there's such a specific like look to that, and you always look a little bit like soggy because everything's humid there.
Totally. Or your nose is running and like it's just like a totally
But those are
different
such
thing.
Visceral specific things. But I'm excited for all that, because as much as I clearly wanted to leave there, like I was ready to go, but like I miss it now. Like I'm excited to go back, you know.
Me too. And to kind of celebrate it and put it on the big screen, you know.
Because it is freaking cool. The architecture there is cool. The people there are so cool. And like, look, anytime anything happens, like the Bills Mafia jumps in and like sends people like donation, because it is just the city of good neighbors.
It is the city of good neighbors.
And so far we've had that experience with like the Buffalo Niagara Film Office. They're incredible people. I've never met more helpful people. Like Buffalo, they want you to come there. They want you to make your family. They want you to have a great time. Like, and everyone talks like us. It's like like excitable, helpful. You know, it's like
and they're all hard workers, and we're all like everybody just wants the best for each other.
The answer is always yes. They'll figure out how. They're like, no, we'll make that work. So I can't wait to have that experience, and also to eat like so many chicken wings and Tim Hortons. I want my Tim Hortons.
Pizza? Are you kidding me? Pizza.
Yep.
Oh,
so. I'll bring my stretchy pants.
Same.
I'll have you make me a pair of the pants you
there
make.
There you go.
But a size
an elastic waist.
Yeah, a size an elastic waist. Oh, well, I can't wait. Rach, thanks so much for coming out to the desert to be, again, our first official in-person interview.
Thank you. I love you. I love your family.
I know, and I can't wait to watch this in like 20 years and cackle about how...
My phone voice. Hello. So nice to see you, Giovanna.
This is Rachel Cocca. I cannot wait to speak with you this very fine day.
I'm sick of talking about myself, so this is great.
And I've always said I felt like we were going to be in each other's lives forever, and so, you know, I feel like it's happening.
We are all locked in.
I love it.
Yeah, love it too.